Hello everyone, welcome back to the Think Energy Hub and our Ask the Expert series. Before I jump in, a quick thank you to everyone who has watched and shared really positive feedback on our previous two episodes, our first one on home energy upgrades and the second on heat pumps. So you will find them at codema.ie/thinkenergy. But today, I am joined by Eoin Clarke from Switcher. So Eoin joined Switcher in 2011, and with his knowledge of the energy and telecoms markets, he really understands the issues facing both consumers and suppliers. Eoin manages supplier, partner, and customer relationships for Switcher and is very keen to enable people to find the best deal from Irish suppliers because he believes inertia costs. Eoin, you're very welcome to the Think Energy Hub.
Thank you very much.
So, Eoin, before we delve into kind of this idea of inertia and resistance to change costing us money, can you tell us just a little bit about Switcher for people who may not have heard of you guys before?
Yes, Switcher is an independent, impartial price comparison and product service. So what we do is we compare products and services across energy, so that's gas and electricity, broadband, so that includes TV, mobile phones, communications, and also now some personal finance products, so things like mortgages, etc. So very much a holistic approach about the person or the home and the bills that will be paid by an individual, and help them to get transparency, help them understand their bills, and ultimately help them save money. And it's a free to use site as well. So we're a member of Guaranteed Irish, and we've been accredited by the energy regulator for seven consecutive years. And what that means is that we're independent, impartial, and we're accurate. And we would go through a fairly lengthy process where we're audited once a year, and there's spot checks on the site as well. So there's 3 accredited websites in Ireland, and I think that's good to point out that consumers can trust the service as well, because there's a lot of complex energy tariffs in the marketplace, and a consumer needs to feel that they're getting the best deal and they can trust the information that they're receiving from a price comparison website.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually used Switcher myself and it has been excellent. So our focus today is very much going to be kind of demystifying switching energy suppliers. So I'm particularly excited about this, not only because I'm a bit of a nerd in relation to these kind of things, but because I recently actually switched supplier for the first time within rental accommodation that I'm in last year. So it is still a relatively new experience for me. But one thing I noticed from your website is that it says that by switching supplier, this could save you kind of over about €400 a year, which is a lot of money for just, changing supplier. So I suppose a really good place to start would be just to ask you, what are the key things that people should consider when switching energy supplier?
Yeah, I think the first one is when is the last time you switched? I mean, that is the question that you need to ask yourself first. And the reason why I say that is that most energy contracts that you would sign up to, the duration is typically 12 months. And you also receive a discount for 12 months. So if you've switched over 12 months ago, it's highly likely that you've moved from a discounted rate to a non-discounted rate, which is typically the most expensive rate or one of the most expensive rates that your supplier has. In addition to that, you're also free, you're out of contract. So you don't have to pay what's called an early exit fee or an early termination fee. Early termination fees in the Irish market are typically around €50 per fuel. So if you, for example, just use electricity in your home and you were to break your contract with your supplier, it would most likely cost €50. So that would be the first thing that I would look out for. Am I actually out of contract? Am I free to switch? And the big one is, have I actually moved from a really high discounted rate to a non-discounted standard tariff, for example, that is costing me more money? And it's at that point that the trigger and the alarm bells should ring to say, I need to switch and I need to make sure that I'm paying the cheapest possible rate. So as I say, are you still in contract with your supplier? Um, the next step would be then to use an accredited website. We have something like 13 energy suppliers in Ireland now. Um, and it's become more important to use an accredited price comparison website because we will do quite a lot of the legwork. So we have all a database, the tariffs available in the market. We show all publicly available tariffs in the market. So that will save you time and money. Um, and another thing that you need to do as well is you need to stay on top of your bills. So you need to become familiar with your bills and your billing cycles and always open your bills. There would be a high proportion of us now that have signed up to things like online billing. So typically what happens with online billing is that you'll receive an email from your energy supplier to say a new bill has just arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in most cases, you'll be required to sign into your online account to view the bill. So if you don't view that bill, you may not know that your discount has ended. You may not know that you're out of contract. You may not know if there was a problem. You may not know if your bill was estimated, for example. So I would encourage anybody listening or viewing to always stay on top of their energy bills. And that gives you a clear picture of when your discount ends and when you're able to switch or free to switch. And I would always typically put a note in my diary to say that I've switched on this day, and it'll pop up next year to say that, listen, it's time to shop around again. Because um, energy is, it's probably not the coolest product out there. If we look at things like broadband, for example, which, delivers so much to a home in terms of, smart devices, and, we're plugged into Netflix and so forth. Energy is less flashy, but it's equally as important. And it's one of the largest bills that a home will pay. So, we could be looking at around €2,000 for a typical household they would pay on gas and electricity each year. So, if that's, say, for a 3-bedroom house, but if you've a 4-bedroom house and 3 teenagers and
Yeah.
you're consuming quite a lot of energy, those bills are greater. So staying on top of your bills is super important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's the thing about energy, isn't it? Like it's not tangible, but the thing that makes it tangible is your energy bill, you know? And that's something that I've kind of realized getting more and more into this is that's how I'm able to track my energy usage is by my energy bill and understanding it, which takes time. So, in your opinion, Owen, other than just to save money, why is it important that people switch supplier regularly?
Yeah, I mean, quite simply, the big one is save money. But um, as a country and as a cohort of energy consumers, the more often we switch, that will put downward pressure on prices overall, because energy companies want to win our business. And if we switch on a frequent basis, we're more likely to put pressure on them to come up with better discounts or better deals for households. So I'd always be a firm believer that, we can, if we're not happy about something, we can march with our feet, we can switch,
People
we're
power.
out of contract. And I mean, that's all well, it's all within your consumer rights to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, you're not signed up to a contract for life, so you can switch. So I think that's a big one. And if I look at the Irish market at the moment, we have some discounts of, up over 40%. So they're really high discounts. And they've gradually got higher over the last couple of years or last 5 years, because, there's pressure on energy suppliers to be top of the table, for example, or to be the cheapest. And to
Yeah.
do that, they need to offer, a bigger discount.
Yeah. And am I right in saying that a lot of people don't make the switch? Like, I'm not sure if there's any particular statistics within, Ireland to kind of demonstrate that. But is it a popular thing that Irish people are doing? And if not, what do you consider to be the biggest barriers to that?
So we, according to the energy regulator, which is the CRU, Commission for Utilities, around 15% of energy customers switch each year.
That's not
So
a
that
lot.
leaves a massive cohort of people that aren't switching. And they're the ones that typically can save money, and quite possibly, as I said, are on a non-discounted or a standard tariff and are out of contract and free to switch. And I remember reading a really good article that was written by Charlie Weston of The Independent saying, if somebody gave you a job and the job lasted 5 minutes and you would earn €300, would you take that job? And of
Yeah.
course you would. Of course you would. Um, and that's what energy switching is. I mean, you can switch energy supplier if you have everything. We'll run through this, but if you have everything in front of you, you can switch energy suppliers quite simply within 5 minutes, and can save you at the moment a typical household using the national average consumption for gas and electricity can save €445 just by
Wow.
switching from a typical standard tariff to the cheapest plans in the market. So that's a lot of money for 5 minutes, say for a typical 3-bedroom house. So it's certainly something that's, as I said, because I'm in the position I'm in, I always switch, and switch friends and family as well. So that savings is too great to be had. So another factor as well is that I was talking about the difference between, say, broadband, etc. Energy, um, when you switch gas and electricity, the thing that you should keep front of mind is that the electricity that comes into your home is still the same. It still comes in through the same cables. The gas, if you have natural gas, for example, still comes in through the same pipes and still heats your home. There's no electricity out there that boils a kettle quicker, for example, or heat your home more. So you're paying for the same product. It's coming into your home in the same manner, but you're paying a lower rate. So you should always make sure every year that you're paying the cheapest possible rate. There may be differences with a supplier that they might offer a super cool app to track your consumption, or they
Yeah.
might offer smart devices, or they might have a better online platform for billing. Things like customer service could be factors as well. Um, but really, you shouldn't you should keep front of mind that it is a product. You're buying a product and you're buying it for a cheaper rate. So pretty much like buying a Mars bar, and you go into shop A and it's 50 cent, and you go into shop B and it's 89 cent. Why would you pay more for it? And again, maybe that shop is just a little bit further away, the 50-cent one, and it's a little bit more hassle to do it. And that's where we fall down when you were asking about the barriers to switching. We carried out research over a number of years to look at what the barriers would be. The big one is inertia, saying that we will do it and we don't do it. And there's numerous reasons why that happens. Um, One of them is that there's a fear that we'll be cut off during the switching process. And I can reassure viewers that when you switch energy supplier, there's no loss of service. So you're literally your fuel supply into your home doesn't change. The only thing that happens is your new supplier takes over your billing at a certain meter reading, and then you're billed from then on from the new supplier. Other ones are that consumers are fearful of being tied into a long contract, or they don't want to be tied into a contract at all. And what we would say with that is that if you purchase any product, you've actually in contract with somebody.
Yeah.
Now, some of those contracts may have a 12-month contract with an exit fee. And as I say, most of the plans out there in the Irish market are typically 12 months. There are some 24-month plans that come with, say, smart devices, for example, and they're tying you into a longer contract. So I wouldn't be fearful of getting tied into a long contract, because there's maybe one or two suppliers in the Irish market at the moment that offer some plans that have no contract at all, but most of them are all 12-month contracts. It's
Okay.
very similar in broadband, mobile phones, etc. Um, the other one then is that they couldn't tell is if they were going to save money. So because the market is complex, they're on a particular plan at the moment. Maybe they don't understand their bill well enough, and they're looking at some new deals, and they're not sure if they're going to save money. Where that can be, I suppose, more relevant is that if you've ever had somebody knock on your door at 6 p.m. just when you're about to have dinner, and it's a sales rep from an energy supplier saying, we've got a discount of 20%. Um, at that point, when you're on the doorstep, you don't know whether that 20% is a good deal. So if you're unsure about something like that, you can always take the information and then go and do your research. Don't feel under pressure that you have to sign up to a deal just because somebody has turned up on your doorstep, because
Yeah.
it could be the case that supplier X is offering a 25% discount, but somebody else is offering 30. Or it could be that their base rate of their standard tariffs is much lower. So somebody is offering 20% off €100 and somebody's offering 40% off €140. So
Mm.
there's lots of different ways. And so consumers can be confused and unsure if they're going to save money. And that ties into just a general I suppose, lack of information or a lack of knowledge about the energy market, which you can build up over time. Other barriers would include that people don't want to sign up to direct debit, for example.
Hmm.
So there may be people that are used to paying a particular way. What I would say is, pay the way that you're comfortable with paying, but consumers should know that energy suppliers offer greater discounts for plans that have direct debit payments, and also things like online billing. So they're not sending you a physical bill in the post that costs money. So if they're not sending you that bill, they can, obviously it's great for the environment. We're
Yeah.
producing less ink, less paper, less waste. But also they're reducing their own costs, and they're passing that cost on to you in the form of a discount. So, I mean, another barrier is that people felt there was no point in switching suppliers at all, and they just had, general difficulty finding, the best deal. So, they're all understandable,
Yeah.
but there is an awful lot of money to be saved. And, just reaffirming the point that it takes, 5 minutes to switch if you have all the correct information in front of you, which I'm probably going to go on to now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that, out of interest, Owen, does word of mouth play a part in any of this? Because just from speaking to people previously in relation to, for example, home energy upgrades, word of mouth is huge in that regard in terms of motivating people to do that. Would that be similar in relation to switching supplier, or is it a very kind of personal decision in that way?
Yeah, there's a couple of schools of thought on this, but I like to think that Irish people, when they go to get a great deal, they tend to talk about it. They tend to say to a
Yeah,
family member or a friend to say, "I've just saved this," that I've done something really good.
that was me.
So yeah, I tend to think that there will be energy suppliers that on their website have like refer a friend schemes, etc., where you can get some credit off your bill, for example, which is pretty cool. But there is an awful lot of word of mouth as well to say, listen, I've saved so much money, you should do the same thing. So hopefully just a lot of goodwill there in terms of sharing that message. But there is an education process as well in the market. So the Irish market wasn't always deregulated in terms of energy suppliers. We typically had two incumbents that were in the market. We had ESB and Bord Gáis, who
Yeah.
have now rebranded to Bord Gáis Energy and Electric Ireland. And as I said, I think there's about 13 suppliers in the market now. So there's a lot more choice as well. Whereas before, there could be a cohort of people that potentially have always been with ESB, and they're probably with Electric Ireland now. And if you ask them who they're with, they'd say, "Oh, ESB." They're just haven't switched. So there
Interesting.
is an education process, and obviously now we're becoming very adept at using the internet and mobile devices, etc. So people can look for the best energy deals on the bus on the way home if they haven't got time. So the world is certainly changing in that sense.
Absolutely. And then I suppose getting into the nitty gritty of it all. So if we were to kind of go back to basics, what would I need if I want to switch supplier? What's the information I need to have to hand?
Super. The first thing I would always say is grab a copy of your latest energy bills.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that you'll know who your supplier is, but it contains certain information that you will need to switch. The two big things is your MPRN, which is your meter point reference number for your electricity meter.
Hmm.
So your electricity meter has a reference number that's 11 digits, your MPRN. And then your GPRN is the gas version of that reference number for your meter. And that's can be up to 7 digits. So you will need both of those numbers to switch energy suppliers. So for example, if you're using an accredited website like Switcher.ie, we will take you through some simple questions to say, who's your current supplier? What plan are you on? So your plan name would be on your bill as well. So it just helps you identify the steps in the process and takes you through those steps. But when you've selected, when you've entered in a certain amount of information, which takes less than a minute, we will show you a results table. And if you select a particular deal and go forward and apply, and that switch is fully processed end to end on the Switcher website, um, you will then be asked a series of questions, and one of them will be is what is the MPRN for your home? What is your address, for example? So a copy of your bills is important. And the next big thing, which again is one of the barriers to switching, is meter readings. So this is the one that requires people to actually do something, you know, and it can be a barrier. And why I say that is that in your case, if you've moved into a new property that you're renting, you may not know where the meter is. Meters can be underneath the stairs, they can be in your hallway, they can be outside the house,
Yeah.
they can be, if you live in a complex, for example, they could be 50 meters away,
Yeah.
hidden behind bushes in a cabinet. So it's identifying where your meters are and taking a meter reading. So typically what I would do is I would bring the smartphone with me and I'd just take a photo of the meter reading and bring it back in and then process my switch. So your bills should be okay. They should be accessible, but the meter readings is the one that I'll do it, but I'll leave it till next week, and it just, drags on and potentially doesn't happen. The next thing you would need is bank details. So the majority of customers, and we would switch thousands of customers each month. We have roughly about 1.5 million people visited Switcher last year, so that'll give you the idea of scale. And the majority of customers that we switch in the energy market are signing up to deals with direct debits, and that's why I said earlier they receive the biggest discount. So there's most savings to be made. So you will need to supply your direct debit details to Switcher to set up your direct debit with your new supplier. So that would be like account number, SWIFT code, IBAN, etc. So if you have that to hand, it just speeds up the process, the switching process. And then if you sign up to online billing, you will need an email address. So most people, I think, at this point will have an email address, or maybe even a couple that they use. So that switching process should take about 5 minutes from end to end. So entering in your current details so we can show you the best plans, selecting the best plan, and then applying for that plan.
Yeah.
And then once you've applied, you're going to receive a confirmation email from Switcher, say, for example. But the switching process itself can take from 2 to 4 weeks. So the process behind that is that we will send your customer application encrypted to the supplier, and they will upload you into their database as a new customer. When that happens, then um, the process of switching takes place. And as I said, that could take 2 to 4 weeks. And you would typically receive a welcome pack either via email.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some energy suppliers that are literally doing this within a minute now. So when I say there's,
Wow.
they're speeding up the process. So, or otherwise, you might receive that welcome pack in the post. Really important when you receive the welcome pack to check the information on it, just in case there's been an error. And what I mean by that is check that your address is correct,
Mm-hmm.
and check that your MPRN or GPRN is correct, and keep a copy of that. Sometimes, well, what I've started to do now is I've started to if I do get post, I've started to scan it with my phone and save it, and I
Good
have a
idea.
copy of it on file. So again, my mum is different, would have a old school folder with all the A to Z,
Yeah.
so yeah, so but keep on top of it, make sure that the information is correct, and then you'll switch. And the reason for giving your meter readings is that we will pass your meter reading cutoff to your new supplier, and the new supplier then sends a market message to say that we're taking over the meter reading from this point. So basically it tells your old energy supplier to stop billing at that point. So you might receive a final bill from your energy supplier at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Only when you receive your final bill with them at that point is when you cancel your direct debit. So when you switch, don't cancel your direct debit. Wait until you receive your final bill, and that might be in your next billing cycle that it comes in. So it could be a couple of weeks away, or it could be 6 weeks away, over a month. When that final bill comes in, at that point, when you've settled that bill, then you can cancel the direct debit for that particular account. So you can, in some instances, you can cancel direct debits on web apps on phones now. I did it recently, so that's something to be aware of. And then you're literally in contract, receiving a discount from your new supplier, and you should make a note in your diary of the date that you switched, because that's the
Mm.
day that you're going to be out of contract, where you can, I suppose, what you don't want is to have sign up to a 12-month contract with a 12-month discount and switch a year and a half later because you're paying 6 months over the odds, or you could be shopping around, free to shop around for a cheaper deal at that stage.
Yeah.
So that would be the advice in terms of, start to finish, cancel that direct debit, make sure that your new supply details are correct,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're up and running. And as I say, I would keep a copy of bills. I mean, energy suppliers, the market is advanced now in terms of having web applications or apps for your phone where you can actually look at your consumption patterns over a period of time. And we also have the introduction as well. I'll probably talk about this a little bit more later, but um, there's a smart meter rollout happening in the Irish market. So ESB networks are rolling out smart meters. And typically what we have in the Irish market is that we have, like at the moment, is we have non-smart meters that are 24-hour, and they're going to be urban or rural, or they're going to be a night saver, which is urban and rural. And night saver might mean that you have one day rate, and then you have a lower rate for using electricity at night time. What's going to be great about smart meters is that in time, you won't need to take a meter reading. You won't have estimated bills anymore. So if you imagine just even the carbon footprint of sending drivers around to read meters, and sending reminders in the post to meter reader, all of that in time will disappear, where the information is just fed back to the network and the energy supplier to say what the actual consumption is. So that's pretty exciting, and that opens up the market as well to what are called time of use tariffs. So, for example, you might have free energy on a Saturday, or you might have family time energy that you're paying a reduced rate between 6 and 8 p.m. And there's even some plans and tariffs in the market for EVs, electric vehicles. So if you're charging electric vehicles at night time, there's a rate for that as well, or specific plans for that. So the market's moving quickly, and I think it's all the more reason for consumers to really stay on top of their bills.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so helpful. And something as well that I've started doing myself is just setting an alarm on my phone to remind me to take a reading
Yeah.
monthly. And I suppose, I mean, we'll get onto this again, but just while we're on it, could you just speak a little bit around that, the difference between kind of actual, estimated, and customer reading, and the benefits for taking that reading yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you should always aim for to try and submit an actual meter reading. On your bill, you would typically see next to your consumption, you would see E, and there will be information on what the different short names mean. But E would be for estimated, A would be for actual, for example. Um, and if you're receiving estimated bills on a regular basis, your energy supplier is predicting what you've used or estimating what you've used. And that may not be 100% accurate, obviously. There is a chance that it's overestimated, and it could be overestimated by 10%, for example, or 5%. So that means for that particular billing cycle, which typically some of them are every 2 months, you're paying more for your energy than you should do. So you're in credit, so to speak, until you submit an actual meter reading. So I think the trick to do it is that if you're being billed every 2 months, is 2 weeks before that is to submit a meter reading, so it's as close to the actual as you can get.
Okay.
So when they produce the bill, it'll have actual rather than estimated. So I would do that on a regular basis. As I say, with the introduction of smart meters, that will disappear in time. And there are smart meters that are capable of reading your consumption every 30 minutes, for example. So a lot will change in the coming year. But for now, for gas and electricity, the advice is to submit regular meter readings. The good news is that it's got even easier to do that. So we can submit them by email, by text message, by phone call. We can even send that photograph that I said. If you take a photograph of your meter reading, and there's a couple of guides on Switcher as well if you're unsure how to read a meter as well. So, and there's plenty of videos online as well. So typically what you'll be looking for is the first 5 digits of your meter reading, and you might see some digits that are in red after that. It's just the first 5 that you're looking for. So again, if you're unsure, straight onto the internet to find a guide on it, brush up on your skills, and make sure that, as you say, a good practice is to enter in a meter reading, or
Yeah.
sorry, is to have a diary note.
Exactly. We'll make sure to put those resources actually in kind of our description on the YouTube video for people, just to make it easier, because they sound brilliant.